Today I'm going to be making the fancy cork that came with a bottle of Zafiro Anejo in Better Call Saul. So let's find out how it's made. The design is meant to look like an agave plant, which is what tequila is made from. So I'm going to do my best to try and recreate this, with simple materials, nothing too complex, and see how hard it is to make one of my own. The hardest part of this project was actually finding the right bottle. There were no blue tequila bottles in any liquor stores near me. The closest thing I was able to find was this bottle of Zafiro tequila. And so it has like the agave embossed onto the glass bottle, and it's kind of got a more round shape to it. It's just not as flat as the one from the TV show, and it's a bit darker. But I just decided to go with this because it was the closest one I was able to find. And also it was pretty cheap. It was only $40 for this bottle of tequila, so it's probably not that great stuff, quite a bit different to the one in the show, which is like $400 or something like that. But I didn't buy it for the tequila, I only bought it for the bottle really. So once I bought the bottle, I needed to take off all the labels off of it, which actually took a long time. Like the glue they used on the paper labels was pretty strong and left this really sticky residue that took a long time to get off. Eventually I was able to remove it. For the top of the cork, I got some wood rounds that I'm just going to sand down and then glue onto the top of the cork. Yeah, so you see how it's kind of getting more rounded? That's what we want. We want more of that though, and to make it smooth and uniform as well. So I just spent about half an hour rolling it around in some sandpaper until I was eventually happy with the way it looked. I also had to sand down the cork to make it fit as well, because it was a little bit too big for the bottle, so I had to sand down the cork as well. I decided I wanted to recess the cork into the piece of wood so that way it'd be stronger instead of just kind of gluing it directly to the bottom of it, which I think worked out pretty good. I didn't want it to snap off if you're trying to take it out of the bottle. That wouldn't be very fun. So then it was time for the petals or leaves. I don't really know what they're called on the agave plant. But anyways, the little spiky things coming off the top, I needed to cut those out. So what I ended up using for this was just a thin plastic cutting board I got from the thrift store. Just one of those really thin ones, and then just sliced it up into petal shapes. I had to make maybe about 30 of them. So in order to get the rounded petal shape, I would fold the plastic in half. So once I had cut a lot of those, I tidied them up with a bit of sandpaper and then cut off any sharp edges or any little bits to try to make them smooth. And then I painted everything. So I bought some copper spray paint, metallic copper spray paint. The copper paint I got is a little bit on the lighter side, not as reddy or orangey as the one in the show. But at the store, there was only one type of copper spray paint, so that was kind of the one I had to use. Painting the petals was actually quite difficult because every time I sprayed the paint over them, they would almost blow away. I had to be very careful with the direction of the paint. And eventually I was able to paint them on both sides. And then I also painted the top cap as well. So I tried gluing on the petals with epoxy at first, but that just didn't set up in time. And then hot glue didn't really work either. So I ended up buying some Gorilla Glue super glue, and that worked out really good because I was able to just hold the piece in place while the glue set. So I glued on all the pieces I made, but then I realized I kind of needed a few more because it just wasn't spread out enough. All the petals were kind of pointing upwards too much. That one definitely looks better, but this looks kind of cool too. So I decided to make more and then paint those and then glue those on as well, just so that way I'd have some petals pointing kind of outwards. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. All I have to do now is paint over the glue, and then we'll be looking pretty good. And then I have to just glue in the cork. But from painting it, the hole was actually a lot tighter and the cork didn't really fit in well, but I forced it and then ended up breaking the cork. So I had to make another one. And then luckily I was able to drill it out and get all the cork pieces out to put in the other one in. And then I was done, and it ended up looking like this. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I think the petals are a little bit on the large side, so maybe if I was making this again, I'd make them a little bit smaller. But I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. I made it to the best of my crafting abilities, and this is kind of what I got. So I'm pretty happy with it. So if you did enjoy this video, why not subscribe?